the County Observer and Monmouthshire Central Advertiser, Abergavenny and Raglan Herald, Usk and Pontypool Messenger, and Chepstow Argus introduce us to the life and exploits of the renowned King Arthur and his Knights of the Round Table.
Chapter 9. I'll to the battle where the men that makes me turn aside must threaten worse than death. Home. Coronation feast at Caerleon, Arthur's presents to the nobles, the refusal of the presents by some, 6 kings concert to destroy Arthur, Sir Lancelot of the Lake and the disaffected nobles. Merlin warns the nobles of their overthrow. Arthur meets the nobles. King Arthur, for his great success, determined in thankfulness to hold a grand festival at Caerleon on Usk, being a more suitable place, both from its magnificent buildings and its fine river, and because it was surrounded by level meads, encircled by fair hills and a spacious forest, for the chase nigh at hand. It had also 2 famous churches, one dedicated to Julius the Martyr, which was adorned with a sacred choir of virgins, and the other to Aaron the Martyr, where was maintained a convent of canons, and ranked as the 3rd metropolitan church in Britain. Besides all this, a college with 200 scholars was here, by whose astrological science Arthur was often taught. Ambassadors were therefore sent into all the subject lands, and the kings and chief persons, both clerical and lay, were invited. And so great was the concourse that it was impossible to ascertain the numbers. Here Arthur was again crowned by the 3 archbishops, and Saint Dubricius sang the service. Then were great banquets given, and processions of bards, both sacred and secular, and games for the display of knightly skill, with smiles of fair ladies, and more substantial prizes to reward the most successful, and archery, and throwing the pike, and casting of heavy stones, and hounds, and hawking, and dice. And these amusements were carried on for 3 days. On the 4th day, honours and preferments were distributed, and vacancies in the government of cities and castles, archbishoprics, abbacies, and other posts of dignities were filled up. Dubricius now gave up his see and became a hermit, the festival having inspired him with a determination to prepare for the joys of heaven. And Dewi Absanthe, now of undying glory at St. David, was made Archbishop of Caerleon in his stead. And at the coronation at Caerleon, the Lords and Commons swore allegiance to King Arthur, and many complaints were made unto him of great wrongs that had been done since the death of Uther, and of many estates that had been wrested from many lords and knights. Arthur then installed Sir Kay, Seneschal of England, Sir Bordewaine, Constable, Sir Ulfins, Chamberlain, and Sir Brastias, Warder of the Marches, and those knights and barons who had so long delayed him from the crown met together, and also came up to the coronation feast at Caerleon, as if to do homage to the sovereign, and there they drank and ate such things as were set before them at the royal banquet. Arthur was glad of so many kings and knights coming, supposing they had come with friendly intentions, and to pay him due homage as their king. He therefore sent them costly presents and messages of welcome. But his heralds were roughly received by the confederated princes and nobles, amongst whom were 6 kings of great renown and might, who raged against King Arthur and determined to destroy him. And these were King Lot of Lothian and the Orkneys, who married King Arthur's sister, with 500 knights, King Urience of Gore with 400 knights, King Naunt of Garlock with 700 knights, King Caradoc with 500 knights, King Owen with 600 knights, and King Anguissant with 500 knights. Their leader was King Urience of Gore, the husband of Morgan le Fay, Arthur's bitter enemy, a chieftain of stalwart form, evil countenance, and savage demeanour. The knight whom King Arthur had selected as his ambassador was the noble and courteous Sir Lancelot of the Lake. Upon his repeating the king's message and offering the presents, Urience turned upon him with a scowl. "What carpet knight is this," he growled, "that thinks it no scorn to bring to men of worship the paltry gifts of a beardless boy of low blood? Back, sir, and tell your puppet king and master that we spurn him and his gifts, and by the rood, you can tell him also that we are come to give him gifts in the shape of blows with hard swords betwixt the head and the shoulders. What say you, my lords?" he added, smiling at his own dull jest, as he turned to the assembled barons as if for confirmation. "It is well said," rejoined another of the princes, Lot of Lothian and the Orkneys, "for it is foul shame to us that such a boy should rule so noble a realm." "Sir King, you know not Arthur," replied Lancelot composedly. "For his youth, that is a fault that time will amend, but for his blood, it is royal, he being descended from a long and glorious line of kingly ancestors, the Pendragons of England." "Are you advised of that?" sneered Naunt of Garlock, another of the chiefs, and a man of great wealth, power, and influence. "Upon whose warrant can you vouch for the truth of what we are unable as well as unwilling to believe?" "Upon mine," cried a loud voice, and a venerable man with long sweeping robes and flowing beard suddenly appeared in the midst of them. "It is Merlin," shouted the astonished nobles. "Whence comest thou, wizard?" asked Urience frowningly. "From Caerleon, from the king," returned the enchanter. "The king? What king may it please ye? We know of none since Uther's death," retorted Urience. "From Arthur the Pendragon," answered Merlin, "the son of Uther and your rightful sovereign." "What proof can you give of that?" asked Urience. "If more be needed, I have proof enough," replied the enchanter, "but methinks the miracle of the sword and stone is sufficient." "We hold that lightly," rejoined Naunt of Garlock. "It may be the work of the fiend or some trick of witchcraft." "Yes, yes," returned the others. "We must have other and better testimony. Tell us for what cause this boy is chosen king. Sirs, hear me patiently, and I will tell you, replied Merlin. He is King Uther Pendragon's son, born in wedlock of Aegurna, the wife of the Duke of Tintagel. The Duke, as you all know, was slain in battle, and 13 days after his death, King Uther wedded Aegurna. And king shall young Arthur be, and vanquish all his rebel peers at home and his foreign enemies. Can this be true? Asked Lot. What think you of it, lords? It is a lie, as false as he who speaks it, returned Uriens savagely. By my haldame, it moves me to wrath that any here should be so weak as for one moment to be cheated by a falsehood so palpable. What then? Must we put our necks under the heel of an urchin unknown to us? Swear fealty to a child whose feeble hands are quite incapable of grasping the scepter or the sword. Enough, I know your minds, and as your chosen leader, I speak for one and all. Go, Sir Lancelot of the Lake, return to him that sent you. We send him scorn and defiance. Bid him close his gates and man his walls in Caerleon, for we intend to lay strong siege upon the place, to whip your schoolboy king with rods and lay his town in ashes. A knightly message worthy of the sender, replied Sir Lancelot with proud disdain. Break we off the parley, and heaven defend the right. Without further discussion, the king's party remounted their horses to ride back to Caerleon. Tarry a moment, Herald, said Naunt of Garlock. Let us see this king, whether he resemble Uther Pendragon or no, and is of seemly presence. Let us have speech of him. It shall not be, cried Uriens. This wizard may throw some spell upon the youth that may beguile us to our ruin. But this objection was overruled by the majority, who shouted, Let him come forth. Let us behold your mighty Pendragon. You shall have your will, said Merlin, if you will swear upon your knightly honour that no harm shall be done to him, and that he shall be safe to come and safe to go. It is agreed, returned Lot of Lothian. He shall have no hurt. And so they parted, Lancelot, Merlin, and their retinue, turning their horses towards the city, the revolted nobles retiring to their camp. So Merlin went to King Arthur and told him all that had passed, and bade him fear not, but to ride out boldly, and speak with them in such a manner as became their king and chieftain. You shall overthrow their forces, he added, and bend the proudest of your vassals to your will. Then King Arthur rode forth in all his panoply of war, attended by his host of knights, squires, yeomen, archers, and men at arms in brave array. And behind the king was borne the mighty gonfalon, on which was depicted the fiery dragon, the standard of Great Britain. The king wore upon his head the dragon helmet, encircled with the ancient Cymric crown, and under his emblazoned tabard a jesseraunt of double mail, and there went with him the Archbishop of Canterbury, and Sir Baudouin of Britain, and Sir Kay, and Sir Lancelot, with many other chieftains. And when they were met, says the ancient chronicle, there was no meekness but stout words on both sides, but always Arthur answered them, and said he would make them bow if he lived, wherefore they departed in wrath. So the king returned to the city, and prepared himself for battle. Merlin, however, made one last attempt to bring the rebellious lords to reason, but without avail. What will ye do? He said to the kings. You were better to submit, for ye shall not here prevail, were ye 10 times so many. Begone, cried Uriens fiercely. We are not to be befooled by a dream reader, or defied by a milk-faced boy. With that, Merlin vanished.